and you trash it ceremoniously. It's a ceremony. It's a ritual. Get rid of your deity and get rid of your guru. So, Prabhupada was instructing. I am taking help, now I throw you away. This is impersonalism. It was an instruction. Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, you shared 2 times this seminar, at least 2 times, about in your first week at the Hare Krishna temple, you were composing poetry and was advised to absorb yourself in the poetry of acharyas. So I have a 2-part question. One is, did you ever go back to writing your own poetry in prayers? And then the second part was, as your disciples, maybe request, I know you're thinking of some writing projects, maybe request to receive some of your prayers in the future?
I have some other ideas. Not poems, some other ideas. Writing projects. But I've been too busy even to meet with people, what to speak of writing projects. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. It was a follow-up from part of the question that I asked yesterday as I was thinking about it. When you were talking about the value of establishing boundaries as a protection for the bhakti creeper, one thing that's not so clear to me is when extending to others and helping, like, what does it mean to help establish boundaries for others? And the main area that I'm looking for some reconciliation is what it means to extend from our side versus arising naturally within on the recipient of that extension's side, and we just reinforce.
Make the second part. Let's do the first part, and then go to the second part again, because I'll have a tendency to answer the second part if I get the first part. Is that okay? Okay. What does it mean? No, he's not done yet. He's got a second part. What does it mean, or how do you go about it? You know, helping others see appropriate boundaries for them. Which is the question? What does it mean, or how do you go about it? Or both?
I guess it's a combination of both, because the conception I have is I'm only seeing it from the perspective of I'm telling you this, not that, which doesn't also sit well with me, so at least I'm suspecting there has to be a lot more to it than just that very simplistic view that I have.
Now I'm really bewildered.
Me too much.
In those situations where, not to speak generally, but say even specifically you, when you're extending to somebody, you're giving spiritual care. You're not the proprietor of that person's life or that person's spiritual exploration. You're just extending care. And one of the those that do this a lot, or those that have seen, those that are effective at doing this, one of the essential elements is a relationship where the most important part of that relationship is being trustworthy. Small thing. And when there is a trustworthy person, so when you are trustworthy, when you become trustworthy, then you don't betray that trust. And so you're not managing another person's life, you're extending spiritual care in a trustworthy manner. And so to the degree that someone is willing to enter into a trusting relationship because their heart is open to a trustworthy person. Some persons have difficulty opening their hearts for a variety of reasons. They've been beaten up and their hearts are not open to anybody. But those people that open their hearts, and you're trustworthy, so that's an important, you're not managing their life or their emotions, but you're extending care. So that's the principle of, they may seek advice. You don't manage their life when they seek advice. You will offer advice. And advice can be, even using this very same metaphor, that is, when you plant a seedling or a small tree or something, it's a good idea in the initial stages of the growth of that seedling or small tree that there's a little fence around it, so that it can grow healthy, wholesome, and groundhogs don't come and eat it up. So other entities that prey on little seedlings, the seedling can grow until it's mature. With or without that metaphor, that's a concern. And in that, that's what it is, and what's good for somebody has a lot to do with your openness to consider the nature of that somebody, their personality, their psychophysical nature, their culture, their upbringing. Totally unique for each person. But some kind of to help the bhakti creeper grow, nourished by a relationship. It's a function, it's a service between that soul and Krishna. You're just doing a service on Krishna's behalf to connect that soul to Krishna. You don't own the person, they're not, your property or something like that. That happens sometimes. People think wrongly like that. It's just nurturing their relationship with Krishna in the initial stages. So some advice that they can, take or not take, it's okay. It's advice. They need to make a decision. And it should be very clear to them, it's their decision. Advice doesn't mean anything more than advice. You have to, so part of guiding somebody is like parenting. It's helping another make wise decisions. So like your child, you may put some boundaries on what your child, as a parent, what she can and cannot do. There's some things you just let her do her thing. There's some things you hold your finger and don't do that. And if she, looks at you and just does it anyway to see what you're going to do, there's depending upon the personality, there's different responses, but you as a parent are setting some boundaries. Now with a new person, it's not a parent, it's a different relationship. It's just a friend or a well-wisher. You can't set boundaries. You have that responsibility for a small child that you don't have the responsibility for. But in any case, as the child becomes a little older, you want them to make wise decisions. Here's why we don't put our hand in fire. Here's why we do this. And anyway, all the things, I don't want to go into a parenting. So, with somebody that's, you're just a friend. And according to the person, all those categories mentioned, something may be advisable that suits them, so that their bhakti creeper can grow, and bhakti creeper can grow, and bhakti creeper can grow. Something that spins people out sometimes, more than sometimes, is if they hear from many people, which means they really don't hear from anybody. They're kind of picking and choosing. I like this, it's just their autobiography, and this resonates and that resonates, and they're really just looking for status quo and being, what's the word? Entitled or authorized, or, now empowered. My ideas are the right ideas because I heard it over here. I heard another thing over there. So I have no authority but my mind. So being a authority is just as a friend, not like, do what I say. And till the point where that person, just like your child, will come to recognize that there are persons who are not just mom and dad. You're blessed. You have lots of mothers and fathers for your daughter. She sees everybody pandita samadarshana. She's got her favorites, from what I've observed. But, she's got lots of people that she'll just be as contented being with some number of people as she is with mom, as she is with dad. So that comes with a little maturity. So same with a newer person. At a certain point of time, it's going to happen. They experience hearing from different people. But hearing from different people, then will come this, but I heard this over here and that over there, so now I'm perplexed. And then you have to, do the dance of, here's how you handle conflicting understandings. It depends on the person, and it depends on, so it's easier to have that little fence. They don't hear from, in a close guidance kind of manner, multiple persons. Eventually, as maturity comes, it's not a problem at all. In part because they have like a person who they have confidence in. And they go back to that person who they have confidence in if they hear something over here and over there and it's confusing. Because they have confidence in that person. They may ask 16 questions to get it clear. It's not just blind acceptance or something, but getting clarity, and then discrimination. It's discrimination that's grounded, so the function is nourishing their faith in Krishna. And boundaries are to help nourish that faith in Krishna, not cause disruption. Especially in the early stages. Real easy to have the little creeper of bhakti get disrupted. Even, with some boundaries. It's just a delicate stage. So recognizing that and how to go about it? Well, it takes Super Soul's guidance. And Super Soul's guidance means I want to be in service to Krishna for this part and parcel of Krishna that wishes to get closer to Krishna. That's an important function. There's a Sanskrit term for it. Vartma Pradarshika. Vartma means path. Pradarshika, one who shows the path. Krishna is that way. That's what you're doing. And, down the road, there's a sharp turn to the right, or, there's a ditch on the left, or, so, that's the boundaries. You're like a human GPS or something, without nagging. Turn left in 100 feet. I repeat, turn left in 50 feet. Turn left now. So we don't nag. find GPSs can be pretty annoying. Yeah. Hey. You pick up on things quickly, huh?
Actually, with your permission and blessing, we four of us would like to take leave. But before we do, I do have one question.
What's that?
My parents and my grandparents, everyone, many of our elders used to say, bhaya and bhakti, fear and devotion go together.
Fear and devotion go together.
So it was mostly said out of a need to discipline younger younger people who wouldn't get the concept of devotion very easily. But then when it comes to true devotion, is there grief or fear associated with true devotion at any level?
You say the last part again, not the whole thing, just the last part.
Is grief or fear?
Greed?
Grief.
Grief.
Yes.
Grief.
Sadness.
Sadness.
Or fear associated with true devotion?
Yes.
At any level?
Which level?
At any level.
At any level,
Yeah.
yes.
For truest devotion?
Yes. Would you like some examples?
Yes.
Ramayana. Some people, I'm sharing with you now, I spent about a month preparing for and participating in a visit to Ayodhya and Chitrakoot. And in the course of preparing and presenting, there's this feeling of sadness or grief. It's the preponderance of it again and again and again and again. When Ram has to leave, and then there's different relationships. What his mother feels, what Dasarath feels, what, all the personalities have different feelings of grief, sadness. That's a GPS. Okay. So I forget the Sanskrit word, but it'll come as I speak probably. It's a secondary rasa. There's primary rasas, relationships with Krishna. Neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental affection, conjugal. In Ram's Leela, all five are there. And the science of rasa says there's secondary ones. And the secondary ones include this sadness or grief. I can't remember the Sanskrit term. And the presiding deity of that secondary rasa is Lord Ram. Secondary rasas strengthen or enhance or enrich or expand the range of the primary rasa. But when the secondary rasa is active, it seems to eclipse the primary one. But the primary one is just being enriched and enhanced and diversified. So in Ram's Leela, as an example, lots of sorrow. I mean, the English translation is sorrow and sorrow and sorrow. I mean, some people told me, I stopped reading Ramayana because it was so sad. I couldn't handle it. But it's a secondary rasa. It actually is enhancing emotion of love. Pure, unalloyed, because the associates of Ram weren't on their way. They were there. Topmost associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with love for him and nothing else, and experiencing sorrow and grief. secondary rasa in pure devotion. Now, in this world, there's a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So there's relationships, primary and secondary, but they're all reflections. And using the adjective, they're perverted reflections. They're perverted, or the reflections because it's not the real thing. Chapter 15, Bhagavad Gita, the tree that's upside down. It's the reflection of a tree in water. Roots are going up. Branches are growing down. That's the reflection. This world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, is there sorrow? Yes. Ram's pastimes, perfect example. He's the presiding deity, according to scripture. Padma Purana references it. He is the presiding. Each of the secondary rasas have a presiding deity. He's the presiding deity of that one. And it makes sense. That is, whatever exists here, how can it exist if it's not in the source of everything? Answer. It must be everything is in the source of everything, including everything that's here. Now, what's here is the perverted reflection of the pure thing. How's that? I'll give you now the fear one. You want to hear the fear one? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Lord Nrsingadev. Canto 7, Srimad Bhagavatam. You can look it up. Chapter 5. Because chapter 4, he appears to protect Prahlad. He has this battle with Hiranyakashipu, and he plays with him like a cat plays with a mouse in his jaws, and then finishes him. And that only finishes him, but then all the soldiers come and he finishes them. The demigods are observing this. Hiranyakashipu is finished. So they come before Lord Nrsingadev and offer beautiful prayers. He's still angry. So they approach Prahlad and say, Prahlad, we're afraid of his anger. He appeared for you. Can you pacify him and have him take his anger away? End of chapter 4. Chapter 5. The goddess of fortune is fearful. She's not a demigod. She's the eternal consort of the Supreme Lord, and she's fearful. Bhaya. Exact word. The explanation given by our acharyas about that is, it's a secondary rasa that enhances the primary rasa. Adbhuta. Astonishment. And with that, some fear. The acharyas say she's creating the mood so that she and the demigods can experience the secondary rasa, adbhuta rasa, that enhances the primary rasa. That's what secondary rasas do. When we feel fear, it's something else. We feel sorrow, it's something else. But pure devotees can feel those things, and it just enriches the primary rasa. Good. Anyone else? Yes. Thanks for visiting. By the door, there's some prasadam. Take some with you when you go.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. On this topic of humility, I was curious to know that all the qualities come from Krishna. So, like I was thinking about it that when Krishna accepted the role of being a charioteer of Arjuna, that can be categorized as humility, but it is categorized as his Bhakta Vatsala quality. So I was just curious to know if any script, and also like humility means God is great, I'm
Humility
very,
does what?
means God is great, I'm very tiny, I need to serve him. So how does Krishna display that quality?
How does Krishna display that quality? We just gave a nice example. Becoming the charioteer.
But
You
that
want
is
some other examples?
that is described as Bhakta Vatsala quality.
But that's humility. My devotee is so great. One of my favorite ones is when Durvasa Muni goes to escape the Sudarshan Chakra and he falls at the feet of Lord Vishnu. Read that section and you have the answer to your question. He's being requested by Durvasa Muni, please withdraw the Sudarshan Chakra. And what does the Lord say? I can't do anything without the consent of my devotee. I have no independence. What? He's the supreme independent. And the fullness of his independence he places at the feet of his devotee. He has that volition. If my devotee doesn't say, I can't do. If my devotee says, I can do. I have no independence. It's not just Bhakta, it's Bhakta Vatsala, but it's this other feature also. It's his nature. Fully independent. And therefore, we have this teaching that says, Krishna becomes dependent upon his devotee. So the devotee is thinking, fantastic, got it. I'll control Krishna. I'll just become his devotee. I got him controlled. It's a good program. No good. Krishna isn't controlled by that. He's controlled by Mother Jasoda. He's controlled by Ambarish Maharaj. He's controlled by his Shuddha Bhakta. It's his quality. So that's where we get qualities from.
Thank you, sir.
Haridas Thakur, who was Muslim by birth,
Haridas Thakur was
Muslim by birth.
Muslim by birth.
Yeah, how was he introduced to Krishna consciousness?
How was he introduced?
To Krishna consciousness.
There's not a lot known about that.
No, he was a pure devotee. He was chanting 300 times.
And his answer, well, it's of the soul. Now, there had to be, even if it's of the soul, you and I, it's also of the soul, it's just dormant. So there must have been, in his life as Haridas Thakur, as a small boy, or from a previous life, something, it's extraordinary, but something like Gajendra, you know, the elephant, he didn't have Vaishnava association in his life as an elephant, but he had deep impression from his previous life as a king, King Indradumna. And that carried over, and it became awakened by the circumstance he was in. Now, that's an example of someone in a present lifetime that they didn't have the association of the devotee to awaken. Or let's take the example of Bharat Maharaj, who became a deer, and then Jad Bharat. So his consciousness was carried over from his previous life as Bharat Maharaj to a deer to Jad Bharat. He had recollection of everything. It doesn't say when he was a young boy he had a Vaishnava. He had a Brahmana father, but his Brahmana father wasn't, you know, necessarily a Vaishnava. He was trying to teach him that he, like, behaved as if he couldn't understand. He did everything backwards, purposefully. But that was not because his father taught him to do that. It was so Super Soul gave him that remembrance. Again, there's not a lot of information I've researched. Regularly, the biographers of Haridas say there's not a lot to be said about his early days. And then some say this, and some say that, and some say the other. There's different views, but there's not a lot that's known. So back to your question, the principle is, for bhakti to awaken, it requires somebody that awakens it, association of one who's carrying bhakti to awaken bhakti. That's the rule. Then I just pointed to some exceptions to the rule. That's the super soul exception. So we don't know. I don't know, at least. If somebody claimed that they knew, I wouldn't be so sure that they really know. So it's either some exalted Vaishnava when he was a small boy, or super soul prompted him from within as a small boy.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I wanted to hear from you what service is.
What service is?
What is service? Just to explain where I'm coming from, I see a tendency in me to go towards practical activity, as in practical action, rather than investing my time and energy.
Rather than?
Rather than investing my time and energy in connecting with the Supreme, in connecting with the Source. I am more towards, doing the doership mentality. And so I wanted to get when we hear in all these prayers about devotional service, taking us towards devotional service or praying for devotional service, for myself, I wanted to hear something
Sure.
about that.
I think I got your question. Read carefully the last verse of chapter 6 and the purport, especially the beginning part of the purport, 647. That's the verse where Krishna says to Arjuna, the previous verse, by all means be a yogi, and then of all yogas, the best of all yoga is bhakti. And he gives these two elements, what the senses do and what the mind does. And that's devotional service. Service, your question was, what's service? It's something that the body does. But the body also follows what the mind does. So devotional service is a mood. Practical, yes. And Krishna's words in Bhagavad Gita, carry out your prescribed duty. That's the doing part. And always think of me. So how do you always think of someone? Because you're attached to that someone. You're sitting here in the room and probably it's not too difficult at all for your thoughts to go to your son, because you have feelings for your son. And he has feelings for you. He's probably thinking of you. Maybe he's thinking of whatever he's doing. But what you're attached to is where your mind goes. So, madgatein antaratmana, antaratmana, madgatein antaratmana. So always think of me. Shradhavan, bhajate yomam. Bhaj means practical activity. So there's both elements to devotional service and even worldly service. Your mind is on something and so your senses go there. There's a team, the mind and the senses. Just like you're coming here for this gathering. You know, your legs brought you here. But there was a thought in your mind, hey, I'd like to go. And then your legs, okay, well, I'll get you there. And both of them they're a machine, yantra. Yantra rudhani maya. The soul is being carried by a machine. And the machine has these different parts. The body is a machine, and the subtle body is part of the machine. It brought you here, brought me here. But it becomes spiritualized or devotional service if it's for the pleasure of Krishna, or at least pursuing that goal, the pleasure of Krishna goal. Now, the doership mentality, which is part of your question, is minus the thought of this is for Krishna, or same as the discussion this morning, our department is the service department, and the results is Krishna's department. Doership mentality is I want Krishna's position, the results department. It's up to Krishna. I make an effort, and I'm dependent upon Krishna. That's devotional service. But supposing somebody isn't a devotee, they're going to do service because it's the constitutional position of a living entity to do service. So they have their mind and their senses are active. So devotional is for the pleasure of Krishna. How's that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Right in front of you.
Guru Maharaj, we know that Vandanam is one of the 9 processes of devotional service.
Yeah.
And something that really stood out for me from Dravida Prabhu's presentations is that all our processes, so whether we're chanting, whether we're reading, they're done in a prayerful mood.
Yeah.
So could you help me understand
What is prayerfulness?
how come Vandanam is a process in itself? It seems like it's part of, when you're really truly chanting, you're actually in a prayerful mood. And when you're engaging in the other processes.
Well, nice question. And there's many responses. One of them is the 9 processes of bhakti are not, using a modern term, buckets. It's either this bucket or that bucket or that bucket, and it's, which one is it? It's not a bucket. It's an expression of devotion. And what you said is, what Dravida said and what you repeated Dravida saying is true. We can hear prayerfully, we can chant prayerfully, we can worship the lotus feet prayerfully, we can, etc. So it's not a bucket in that sense. It's a anga of bhakti. Say the same thing in a different way. It's not that those who perfect their lives through prayer, they don't do any of the other ones. They probably do the other ones prayerfully, etc. Although Prabhupada writes, any one, because Rupa Goswami, any one of these 9 by striving for perfection in any one of these 9, you can achieve perfection. 9, 8, 7, even 1 perfection. But try to isolate one and just do one. That's too challenging. Ooh. Go ahead.
I wanted to revisit the question I asked you yesterday evening. I don't feel like I worded really.
I think for me, part of the problem was you were reading it rather than feeling it. So say it feelingly, I'll probably get it better.
So how does a devotee internalize humility while there is a need in some situations to present very confidently one's ability to help people take the next step.
Okay. That was real clear. Thank you. In a mood of service, as appropriate for the circumstance. Now that takes some discrimination, which is a faculty of intelligence. So intelligence can guide humility. In this circumstance, this is appropriate. In that circumstance, another thing is appropriate. So if it's appropriate to take a firm stance, as you said, with someone to help them so they don't fall off the cliff, take a firm stance, not in a controlling mood, but in a service mood. And you leave the result up to Krishna. You're just doing some service. Back to this earlier question, it just, there's a soul, and your function is the instrument of Krishna to help that soul get closer to Krishna. So, speaking firmly or strongly has to be used sensibly. Again, from the discussion this morning, different persons have different styles. If you're Bhakti Siddhanta, everything is, firm. That doesn't mean he's not soft in his heart. It's just that's his approach or style. And in the mood of service is the answer, when necessary, guided by Super Soul, and with the intention of being the servant of this soul to come closer to Krishna, which is built into your question. Yes? Shubhra.
Guru Maharaj, this question is coming from this topic of self-love.
Topic of?
Self-love.
Self-love. Self-love, okay. For
So-
those of you that weren't with us, the youth topic was that topic. Yesterday afternoon, 3:30 to whenever we went.
So connecting with what I heard from you yesterday,
Speak slowly.
I was walking through my gym and there was a promotion slogan there, give yourself a gift of health,
Promotion film where?
in the gym.
In the gym, okay.
And I was just connecting with what I was hearing you, and then was kind of translating that slogan for myself, that give yourself gift of loving devotional service. And that is a definition of self-love. And that's how I was connecting. And then one thing that I was trying to understand, that is it a matter of choice and a commitment? Then
Is it a matter of trying with
No.
commitment?
no, it's a choice that one has to make, and it
Is it a
starts
choice one has to make?
to give oneself. So it's like what I'm
To
trying.
forgive oneself.
No, to give that gift of devotional service to oneself. That it's not that we are doing a favor on Krishna by devotional service, but it's actually a gift to one's own self to
That's in Prahlad's prayers. We did it yesterday evening.
so
right?
what.
The decoration in the mirror, you're decorating yourself.
Yes, so it's the same principle that, so, when we say that Cheshta is in our hand, so what, like when I see weakness,
When you see what? The
when
door
I see
slammed.
weakness in me,
Weakness.
is because the commitment is weak, not that, I'm investing more in my weakness than making the choice of giving myself that gift.
Hey, somebody, this is an answer to, where is Harish here? No. The question he asked this morning, this is an answer to his question. The weakness is because we're investing more in the weakness as opposed to, let's say, the path to Krishna, the strength, the light. Yes? So, yeah, we bought our misery. We thought we were getting sukha, we got misery instead. And that nourishes the weakness. We don't have to do that. It's good to be self-honest and say, over there's a weakness. Now what do I do? Develop strength. Overcome the weakness. Yeah?
So it's a matter of choice, that
Matter of choice.
and that person has to make that choice.
Yes.
And that choice is strengthened by one's own commitment to one's own self to do it.
And the commitment to oneself is incomplete without the commitment to Krishna. That's commitment to oneself. That's
Yeah.
self-love.
And my question is that when I see that the weakness is on my side, that I am not committed to my own self in the journey. I'm seeing
Well,
the
because we don't even have the proper understanding. We have the notional but not the proper understanding at the heart level of what our self-interest is.
Hmm.
We're thinking in terms of the illusory energy self-interest, not the real self-interest. And that the holistic picture, the body and the mind, etc., self-interest will be fulfilled if my real self-interest is met. Now, the real self-interest is not minus the body and the mind. It's not the soul's over there and that's my real self-interest and the heck with everything else. But the everything else follows the one. The well-being of the soul establishes the well-being of the body and the mind. So I make choices, your word, about what I do with my mind, what I do with my senses, what I do with my body, pursuant to what's pleasing to Krishna.
Can I ask just a little clarification? So is that the understanding that the stronger my commitment is to please Krishna,
Yeah.
that is the place where my self-commitment to my own self will strengthen?
Yes. Self-respect, self-importance, self-love, self-realization. That's the real self-interest. Yeah. Okay. You're just looking for confirmation and I think you got it. Way over on the other side.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my question is about prayer. There are moments in my life when I strongly feel that whatever the little advancement I've made is because of the prayers of the people who are guiding me, and I want to reciprocate with them. And in this process, when I just disclose to them that I feel this way, that you prayed for me and I want to reciprocate, they don't openly acknowledge it, but I have that strong feeling. So my question is, how can I reciprocate to them when they don't openly disclose that they prayed for me?
And when they don't do, well, just the last part, when they don't what?
Openly disclose that they prayed for me. They don't accept it openly.
You smile. Don't pry into their hand. What you got in your hand? Just smile. Knowingly. And with gratitude. They don't have to disclose what's in their hand. What do you think about that? I want to see what's in their hand. Don't do that.
How can I reciprocate better if...
How can you reciprocate? Smile. Be happy. Not just cosmetically. That's reciprocation. A well-wisher wants to see the happiness. Chant and be happy. They want to see, the suffering, unnecessary suffering of the conditioned soul becomes mitigated, not like zero, but mitigated, and the soul within becomes happy. Turn it around, and you're extending your well wishes to somebody, and you see them become happy. That's reciprocation, isn't it? And the credit goes to Krishna. You don't take the credit. Credit goes to Krishna. Yes, over here.
Guru Maharaj, you touched this point in the morning while answering a question. Anukulyena Krishnanushilnam, that intention to please Krishna.
The intention to please Krishna.
At times I feel, not at times, maybe most of the times, I feel I lack that intention while doing the services, anything. I'm happy that I'm able to realize that that intention is missing, but it's not that easy to get that back. My specific question is, I know that chanting, hearing, and reading or cooking, I have to do that. So I tend to do that anyway, praying Krishna. I don't have that intention, but still please accept. But when it comes to some services at the temple, or to the spiritual master, or to the other devotees, there is some kind of fear or anxiety that I may offend them, doing in this kind of mental platform when I don't have proper intention. So I tend to reject that service, saying I'm not qualified or I don't have the time.
Well, that was honest. We won't tell Premananda, don't worry. So the punchline of the question is what? What to do? How do I improve in that area of my service? That's the question?
Can I add, Guru Maharaj?
More?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some instances it happened and I feel so miserable afterwards. Why did I not take up that service? When I say reject, and after a few days I feel more guilty and...
You feel, okay. Yeah. Ripple effect.
So I want to do the service at some level. It almost feels like split personality.
Okay. My thought is just repeating something that I said earlier. Good to hear these things again and again. Feeling number one and then feeling number two. Feeling number one, you take that feeling to Krishna. Not like he doesn't know, but you make the Krishna connection directly. And it's not that you're looking for Krishna to be a janitor. Come in and clean up the dirty stuff. You're just relating to him. And then you can add whatever you want to add. I wish, but with your mercy, to overcome this feeling. And that's a good beginning. And just do that for a while. You can still say whatever you said before. You started that kind of a prayer to Krishna, or bringing your emotion to Krishna, reposing everything at his feet. It's a relationship, and just strengthen the relationship. When the relationship becomes stronger, I wish to overcome, you could add, please give me the intelligence or the strength or the courage or whatever it is. If you so desire. Because my real intention is to please you, not just, I really want to do that. My intention is to please you. Please help me overcome this tendency so I can be more pleasing to you. So, Manasa Deha Geha Yogi Chumora. That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sharanagati. So you take all those things and they're Krishna's. You are Krishna's and those feelings are Krishna's. Everything is Krishna's. I'm your servant. I wish to become a qualified servant. Krishna, kindly help me. And if you mean it and continue to repeat, then hopefully or ideally, Krishna will give some intelligence in the moment. And then I still may have some reservation because of fearfulness or something, but Krishna may help you. So, this little boy is going to have to find another place to be happy. And mommy has to help him find that other place, okay? He's a nice boy. He's happy. Thank you. Give him some Mahaprasadam, he'll be happier. And then another strategy could be something that we discussed before, with the Mukunda's question. Remember Mukunda's question? So, where there's some weakness, you borrow from strength. Do those things that give you strength. And then you know there's this weakness over there, and then you take a little of the strength that's over here. Do those things that give you strength. Do them robustly and happily and enthusiastically, and you have more strength. You borrow from some strength over here and put some over there. And whatever that might look like, once a week I'm going to say yes instead of no. On the strength that I got from the things that give me strength. Because it's really, I don't want the emotion number one or number two. I want to, but I need strength. So it's as a practical application principle. And don't try to become perfect from 0 to 10 in one swoop. Just move in that direction and mean it. Make a goal and mean it, and then move towards that goal. Okay. Here we go, up front.
Krishna Maharaj, my question is, I set goals towards my progress, towards spirituality.
Good.
What happens is sometimes it's based on emotions. So what I mean is, when I set the goal, I don't have the discipline to follow it, and it's more of, I'm very emotional as to one day I feel like doing it, and the other day, I just let it pass through. An example is before leaving to work in the morning, I cook the prashadam, and when I have the time, my prayers are very elaborate, and I take the time to offer the food. But when I'm late, my prayers are super fast. I'm looking at the watch as to, when is it 15 minutes so I can take it off. And I feel really bad. And then when I go to work, I'm like, this is not right. I shouldn't have done this. And that guilt feeling. And then I'm like, tomorrow I'll do it better. And then it happens again. And I feel that there's some disconnect. And I always feel bad that why don't I have that love for God? Why am I doing this? And I'm not doing the right kind of service. So how do I overcome that?
Purity. And purity has a price to pay. And part of it is accepting yourself. This is my position today. Something that, there's this saying, misery loves company. You've heard that one? Misery loves company. So what you just described is 100% standard on the path of bhakti to Krishna. In fact, there's Sanskrit terms for it. I invite you to read chapter 3 of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Madhurya Kadambini. You can just listen to the recording later and you get the name of the book. And it's, the chapter title is Anartha Nivritti. And in that section, he describes 6 different stages of unsteadiness. Before one comes to steadiness, which is what you want, there's unsteadiness. And the unsteadiness is due to unwanted things in the heart. And 2 of the stages in that unsteadiness is, I put a lot of thought into something that if I did this one thing, it would really be good for my bhakti. I've given a lot of thought to it. There's scriptural references, I'm convinced. Now I'm making this vow. Then I don't do it. Or inconsistently, sometimes, sometimes not, sometimes. So that's the do, and then there's the, refrain from something that's detrimental. So some people struggle in that area. Those are 2 of the 6 categories of unsteadiness. It's classic. Welcome to the club. You're just a card-carrying member of an intermediate stage of bhakti. So don't beat yourself up. Don't be complacent. But don't beat yourself up, because that doesn't do any good. Your enthusiasm goes down. It's detrimental. It's tamagun. Don't surrender to tamagun. Don't surrender to rajagun either. I'm going to do it. You know that one? Just reach out to Krishna. Just like this other question. This is my situation. I'm in this unsteady stage. My Krishna, you're omniscient. I don't have to tell you, but I have this relationship with you, so I'm disclosing. This is my heart. I want to become steady. I have not been able to do this on my own. From what I've understood from Scripture, I cannot do it on my own. I don't want to be on my own. Krishna, please accept me. And just keep doing that, like a child. What's mom and dad going to do when the child goes like that? They pick up the child, and they hug the child. And in 30 seconds, the child is wiggling, wants to get back down and run around. Isn't it? But they wanted that. So you want that. Krishna wants to accept you. You just have to want to be accepted by Krishna and not be influenced by those other unpleasant modes of nature that give unpleasant feelings and debilitate your bhakti. Accept yourself where you are. It's not where you want to be, but it's where you are. Unsteady. I want to become steady. I feel it's so important. But there's something standing in the way. That's the impurities of the heart. I'm dependent upon you, Krishna. I'm going to do from my side, and I'm dependent upon you. It's like this little example from Nectar Devotion. Really simple. In a small child, before the child becomes a toddler, there's the capacity to walk. So as they become a toddler, they experiment with their, not muscle skills yet, the rubber legs. And they try to stand up and fall down. What do? Get up again. Until the motor skills develop, they're going to be, but the walking capacity inside, as long as the motor skills cooperate, they can eventually walk, and after they walk, they're running. They can't stop. So same. The bhakti is natural. It's already there. Steadiness is natural. It's already there. But there's some covering, something unwanted. So don't beat yourself up. That's not going to get rid of the unwanted thing. It's the exercise, the bhakti muscle. Yeah. And Krishna will help. Don't just do it independently, with dependence on Krishna. Ooh, end of the world. If we're done with the questions and answers, we could move into the next session. It's 20 minutes after the hour. Who's going to lead the next session? Is Radha Sundari going to lead that? How about one more question while somebody goes and finds Radha Sundari? Probably in the kitchen. There goes somebody to find Radha Sundari. No? No. Okay. What's that? What? Oh. Okay. Okay. Last question. Okay, we're ready.
Maharaj, Hare Krishna. My question to you is, how do you manage your time?
How to manage your time.
Yeah, I mean, like, I also have the same time on my hand, same as you. But sometimes I feel like, do you really sleep? Like, because you do so much of stuff in one day. So I want to know, how do you manage your time?
Take a time management course, I suppose. I never took a time management course, and I don't know if I manage my time well either. But there's some principles that I understand. Quick. My language is blocks of time. And then prioritize. That's what worked for me. So what priority for me is quality chanting, attentive chanting. I find the best attentive chanting is early morning. And I also know, generally speaking, how much rest my body requires. So I like, plan A is take rest early, get up early, chant early. And I have some idea of how much time it takes me to do that. That's a block of time. So that takes care of an important, the time to take rest, number of hours of rest, set the alarm. When the alarm goes off, get up. And looking forward to chanting early. That's important in time management. You're looking forward to what's important to you. It's part of your time because it's important to you. And then depending upon the situation, that is, I'm in a temple or whatever's going on, the rest of the day flows, and I have some idea that's a little fluid depending upon where I am and what's going on, where the blocks of time are portioned according to what I know I need to do. I have some health things, regulation in eating, that's important for health, not quantity, but regulation. Anyway, blocks of time with priorities. And it's important for you to know what are your priorities. So now there's an academic part of your life, and there's an outreach part of your life, and then you just blocks of time. So you, in your mind, then you put it on paper, then you have blocks of time. Then you have plan B, in case something comes up that disturbs plan A. And so it's the backup plan. It's not, as soon as that's over, you're back to plan A, like the next day, not next week or next month. Right away, plan A. That's part of time management. So if you have difficulty with time management, maybe you could do a preliminary and then sit with somebody that's good with time management and have them look at your time management plan. You're prioritized and know that how much blocks of time. And then comes the unsteadiness. I don't stick with it. But I know it's important to me because regulation promotes goodness. And you're more effective when you're in the mode of goodness than when you're in the mode of passion. Mode of passion says, no, you got to be passionate, then you're effective. Not so. So regulation, then it's long-term effectiveness. So it's some guidance from somebody that you know is good at time management. But start with yourself. Don't just put it on them. Start with yourself. Take those two principles, prioritized in blocks of time. And the priority question is, what's really important to me? Not what are the expectations of others, that's not a 0, but what's important to me, that's the 10. And what's important to me is I certainly take into consideration the expectation of others. But that's not the 10, it's...
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for the advice.
No. Are you ready? Yes. Well, before you do your ready thing, I have somebody waiting for my phone call, and so I'm going to go make a phone call. I'm going to miss out on this fun activity of sharing appreciations. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes, Mark. I think that's over already. It's going to be kirtan and
What's that?
the sharing is over. They did it in their individual groups, in their sangha groups.
Could you say it a little faster, then I could understand you better?
The sharing is over. They did it in their sangha groups. So now it's just kirtan and then pushpanjali.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Your sister speaks faster than you do.
I'm the best of them all.
You rival one another. She's probably used to me saying it so many times.
I didn't hear you, Mars. Sorry, what did you say?
It's okay. I think you got the message.
Okay.
So kirtan time and then pushpanjali at 12.
Yeah.
I have some flash drives if somebody didn't get one and wants one, and then I'm going to go upstairs and make this important phone call. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.